Excellent. This
Okay.
is Dmitry and Jerry just starting their conversation about digesting the entire universe.
Wow. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, if we're moving this direction, then my focus is study and finding the way of providing global sustainability. And recent development is understanding that that will be difficult if processes are not coordinated on a global scale. If we did not succeed in developing global subject, which is a kind of a substance which is capable of collective what? Collective consciousness and intelligence towards collective decision making. And for providing that, we also need to build a holistic ontology, which is basically, as a result, we'll have a holistic view on our world, what parts it's made of, how they are interacting, potentially at every location where especially where we expect the critical changes. And so far, it's all of those topics are big, and I believe that with Jerry, we are trying to prototype this kind of ontology in different ways. And we also need these different ways because to make this worldview complete, because it needs to be not seen in all its varieties, but also seen in different ways and presented in different ways for different people. All right, so what is the next? My thought was thinking maybe we can find a way of moving in this direction together. And so it's building probably protocols for exchanging our ontologies still, I believe that we already have. And and finding the ways of building these teams that will achieve the goal, which can be thought as a global sustainability, without maybe looking into the very details what this sustainability is.
Interesting. What are your favorite examples or role models of anything that exists today that has got a little piece of this, that's doing some of this? Who do you look at for inspiration? Is there anybody?
There are people that I'm listening at the moment. This always started from a few big minds, like it was a novel of, I guess, what is the name in English?
What's the word you're looking? What's the word in?
It's a game of bets. It should be something different. Just I'm thinking.
Betting game.
Bets game.
Yeah. It's the law. Well, what kind of bets? Is it a card game? Is it a dice game? Is it a game of the long now wagers?
Well, the idea of the novel is it was a kind of a cast of people like monks whose task was interconnecting very different aspects in their lives, and they've been building this kind of mental maps, and when they got to the understanding to what we may call now holistic ontology, they would just kind of uprise to sky and join the eternity, something like that.
In the chat, can you type how to spell it?
What we can do, for example, I can already start showing how I access and work with LikeInMind.
Okay.
And for doing that, I need to share the screen.
That sounds great.
And what I'm doing right now is going to the page online, and I'm typing this idea.
Oh yeah, the Glasspiel game, the Glasperlenspiel.
Yes, Glassbeard game.
And for what it's worth, я не говорю по-русски, but I took a year of Russian in high school, so it's been a long time.
Whoa, excellent. So this is a demonstration that what I'm actually building is it's a footprint of my associations on the web, where I can find ideas quickly. And so doing it manually now is a pain, and not it's difficult to repeat by many. And you may probably see the same experience with building your associations online too. I mean, I believe that people not quite following these methods. This is my understanding.
What do you mean by that?
Just I do not see many who are building the associations.
Yeah, very few. It's a rare thing to find. You are correct.
Yes, and I believe that I heard that in your presentation on TheBrain a couple of years ago. So we need to find a way of inviting more people, and it means that it will be lowering barriers to participation.
Exactly.
And so what we are looking into now is the development of a cognitive assistant, which will make this bridge between people and facilitate emergence of collective intelligence in scale. So the cognitive assistant is a kind of virtual assistant who will see very different modes of interaction of people. It will analyze textual, visual, and audio say channels of interactions and try to guess what are the intents of those people who are involved in different activities. And that will be P2P interaction, so all the data will be kept on individual computers or devices, not shared with anyone without permission of an owner of this. And I believe that is the way this year IT will be going to. It's called distributed artificial intelligence. And if we get right this way, we should be good. I mean, in both hopefully developing a platform as well as the holistic ontology. So this is my current understanding of what's going on. It's a need in building a team that will be capable of realizing this vision, if you agree with that. And because this whole approach is inclusive, we just start doing it and see what we're capable of, what is missing, what needs to be added, and so far. Okay, and
do you want to go further with the Glassbead game here? Like you're showing me the Glassbead game in LikeInMind. How do you represent it in there? What does it? Can you show me more of what you've curated about it?
You see, just what I showed before is just the associations between what I have in mind in Russian and the actual name of the game. Yeah, that's more or less all I need to see in this namely association. And what we see here is just my map.
Right.
Hold on, just oops, it's Russian. And what we have here is the concept of Personal virtual associative networks. We are building online, and that's what we probably need to build together with other people, helping them building these associative networks for themselves as a matter of training. And also these networks will be a part of a bigger one, which is called Integrated Virtual Associative Network, which is basically a model of a global mind. And we are not able to build it unless they are placed all at the Unified Conceptual Space. So it can be thought as a subjective Wikipedia, where every opinion is heard, and we have very different points of view on the same matter. And that is critically important to see at different locations. Because in different locations, we'll have different patterns active. On the same phenomena will be expressed in different way at different locations. And that is a difficulty to understand. For example, people who are thinking they know what systems thinking is. So they believe that if they start local processes on place with a similar idea in mind, they will achieve the global sustainability, which from the systems theory impossible. All those people needs to get communicated between each other. They have to agree on these common goals. They have to coordinate their actions because global sustainability one of the models is breaking it in 3 domains, which is economy, ecology, and social life, basically. And these 3 domains, they are coming in conflict with each other. So So this is often overlooked because people are not looking holistically on the overall problem. They think, okay, we start building trees, and then all our planet become green, and all our problems will go away, which is so far from the holistic design principles.
But what if millions or billions of people suddenly decide to recycle much more, and they decide to not eat meat, and they decide to do, plant a tree, but they're not coordinated, they're not talking to each other, but they're doing roughly the right thing? Isn't that going to help?
These 3 points, the aspects, they are sitting in the opposite corners of a triangle of frustration.
What's the triangle of frustration?
Yes, and so you see, we are starting now synchronizing our understanding, which is I call synchronization of our associative networks. Triangle of frustration is when you have to choose 2 of 3. We cannot do cheap and fast altogether. That's always based on some fundamental principles, which is probably a second law of thermodynamics, somehow dealing with the way how we organize and our world. Just when we put more order in one place, it can be done only on expense of creating chaos in another. And
but the example I gave of somebody deciding to recycle more is not an example of a triangle of frustration, right?
When they start thinking about recycling more, for example, when they start not digging, but catching all this plastic from the ocean, it means that certain resources, including social, well, not touching social, just certain economic resources needs to be put into this action. It means that these resources will not be directed where they may be needed else, somewhere. So it's always on the expense of something else. It's not just we improve our ecology, that's all what we need. It means that we can expect a drop in quality of life of people, reduction of economic development, something like that.
For any action anybody takes?
Yes.
So there's an equal and opposite detriment?
Well, that's what I believe, and we can see how it works. Just just well.
I mean, if half the world's population tomorrow decided to become vegetarian,
Yes, you see.
Where's the negative effect of that?
Well, it's if it is
tomorrow they decide that no more beef, no more chicken, no more pork. Tomorrow, all together.
Yeah, but from perspective of myself, well, do I have to follow the majority?
What do you mean?
Well, just I do not believe that they will just decide it at once. It should be an evolutionary process and with trials and errors. Yeah, and we can expect
right, but
in different corners of the world.
That many people suddenly decide to do that.
No, it's not possible.
Okay.
Suddenly is not possible. It's a gradual, it's evolutionary process, and we can think about making this process conscious. That's how they decide. So their will should be developed within themselves. It should be their decision. It's not following the majority. It's not following a leader, which is even more dangerous. Yeah, it will be something which will be developed in themselves. But the problem is that we all are sitting in between these three corners. Talking about sustainability, it will be economical, ecological, these three corners. Yeah, different worlds, different people will select a different combination of these factors. And in this way, they will come into, is it the word antagony with each other?
Antagonism.
Antagonism, yeah, in this sense. But still, it will be, yes?
I think I follow.
Yeah, so it means that to remove this antagonism between different regions of the world, because their decision will be driven by their history, their culture, how it was developed over centuries. So for some people, like in India, they are already natural vegetarians. For other people who live on islands, for example, I don't know, it's just who eat meat all the time, everyday meat. So potentially it will be just a disaster for them to switch to just pure vegetarian diet. So we cannot force them doing it, because we are thinking about developing this collective subject. Well, yeah, the understanding of a subject in this case, it's a substance or person, better say, who has a goal and who is willing to achieve this goal by some consistent actions. And we can now recognize the individual subjects from collective subjects. Collective subjects are different organizations and companies who have a goal which can be very different to a sum of goals of its individuals, depending how this particular organization works. For example, in the case of tyranny, we cannot close any opportunities for any forms of organizing people where they see a need in it. Yeah, so for example, in the case of tyranny, it will be just one opinion for all. Yeah. So in the case of, say, democracy, it will be something like I don't know, a superposition of opinions of different people. I do not really know. I'm not prepared to talk about this particular topic. Just it's visualizing the scale of problems we are working in.
Right.
Yeah. So sorry for interrupting. It's I made it a monologue, but just no, I want to finish this line first. And,
yes.
So what happens that we have integrity of everything within one person. We need to find a way of creating the collective subject who is as holistic as one person in all the processes, ideally. Yeah, and so then we can probably imagine a situation when where these collective subjects forming a global subject.
Can you describe a situation, any community or any group on Earth that has done that behaves that way, that has followed that path that you just described?
Well, collective subject examples, it's it's many of them. It's
Okay.
any organization. They are just at different levels of development. I'm not sure whether I have a page like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to see. And so this is what I'm showing is actually a way of developing this map for myself. I call it triple S, systematic and systemic studies.
Mm-hmm.
When I see that something is missing, then this topic needs to be created.
Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with TRIZ?
Yes.
Good.
I was taught trees for about a year.
That makes total sense to me. That makes complete and total sense to me. Very interesting. It's funny. So I think that you and I have very similar goals and quite different processes to get to those goals. Partly, I'm not an ontologist. I'm not a logician. And I have a few beliefs about human nature and how people collaborate or what motivates people to collaborate, but very few hard and fast rules about their behavior inside that process. I mean, I think it has to be emergent, as I think you say. Like it has to come from people. They can't be forced into it, etc. But I'm not working from any things like the triangle of frustration where decisions are necessarily trade-offs all the time. I mean, it's interesting. So I'm interested in the explorations you have made. And you are creating a new page. Excellent.
Yes, I'm listening to you very attentively. I'm just on the background, I'm showing how this is being done.
Yep. Which is what I do with my brain as well during the Inside Jerry's Brain calls. There we go. And then you show it in debate graph. Good.
And so we can have very different views or styles of presentation of the same thing. And as you can see here, my tool is more manual than yours. It's less convenient, but that's how I just maybe used to work with it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You're accustomed to it.
And, well, not only because the brain is not free for participation, especially when I started.
Well, PBWiki is proprietary or something. What happened to PBWiki? Because you're using PBWiki, but I thought it was gone.
No, it's still alive. Well, as you see.
Yeah.
It maybe disappeared from surface, but well, I'm still using it.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, because it doesn't have limitations in the number of the pages, and it has some advanced features. So we can put here even JavaScript, as you've probably seen before, on the pages, and customize it in the way that we like. So I can do partially develop.
Which lets you embed things, right?
Yeah, and so what we see here now is the graphical interface for the page, collective subject examples that we have here. And here's the link back to that environment. So these two pages become interconnected now. So that's how we go to the graphical representation, the graphs. And here we can put any kind of text, images, videos, just whatever you like here. And we can, for example, write here that So something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that's about all. And so also what is important for building this ontology, it's not just ontology for ontology in the case of LikeInMind, it's support and development of projects.
How do you mean?
It means that, for example, I'm a part of this project at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit slow. But still, to navigate around is easier for me just to type, for example, abbreviation and then find the page, find the link where I want to go to. And here we can see the subcategories this project is broken to. So this is a project management tool, not just an ontology, not just a mind map.
Mm-hmm.
And just in maybe ontology, probably they say that any data, information, or knowledge has no sense without the context. And that's how we have to be really grounded and see what is working on at what location with what kind of people. And at different locations, we can expect different kind of not laws, but patterns.
Right.
But still, because our world is partially ordered and partially chaotic or disordered, better say, then we still can expect that patterns working in one location can be accepted by others.
So one of the problems with deciding on an ontology is that you then have to get participants to recognize the ontology, or you have to automatically figure out where their participation fits in your ontology. But either way, if you have an ontology and nobody's work connects to it, it's not useful, right?
Absolutely. So I came to understanding of a need of a role in a team, which I called a memory agent, especially when the ontology is being built manually like that. It's a full-time job for a project to keep doing it. And so then the barrier will be lowered with a cognitive assistant in place.
You mean a software one?
It's artificial intelligence that will be looking on this all different kind of patterns and suggest those patterns for the memory agents first of all, and for other people if it realizes that those people are capable of building these ontologies, and so they find it useful for their activities.
Interesting. And I wish TheBrain had an API so that a listener app could do what you're describing right now and say, as I'm adding something, say, oh, that looks like a book and its author. Shall I tag them up that way with semantic tagging, right?
Oh, wow, yes. Semantic tagging is a big topic as well, because it's so difficult for too many of us to keep building these semantic links. Hold on. Я не знаю. Оставь здесь. И закрой дверь, пожалуйста. Хорошо? Sorry.
That's okay.
All right. So semantic. It means semantic to me means that we are describing what kind of links we're establishing between nodes of a network, and that is a job. It can be a huge job on its own. The establishing of right links, meaning between these dots.
Right.
And even for the memory agents, it can be too hard, just based on my experience. Keeping describing these links. That's why I switched into the associative networks, which are kind of broader in its features and capabilities. Oh. Associative network, it doesn't have a direction. It's bidirectional or multidirectional, compared to semantic, where you have a direct link from one to each other. Not every semantic link is reciprocal. Yeah. So it means that when you go one way, you're not necessarily going back. While associative networks are, yeah, you can, if two objects are interconnected, you are free to choose either directions. So it has more flexibility. And then when rules needs to be added, they can be added already at any time on already established links.
And so how far along are you with any part of the AI that you would want for the virtual assistant or the memory agent? Like where are you in the process of developing these different parts? Because what you've shown me is some of the visualization through debate graph, a lot of the wiki nature of the raw data through PB. How are you doing on the rest of it?
No, well, I cannot just do it at the moment. I'm relying on a team. I realize that only a team will succeed in accomplishing this.
Great.
I keep talking with very different people and just hope that at certain periods of time, this team will emerge and very different specialists will join it and take a role. Just yeah, maybe because it's not happening at this moment, maybe it's not still a right time.
So I mean, I think partly the answer to what I was just asking is that you are in recruiting mode, where you're looking to figure out who would like to help, who has the specialized knowledge that is needed in order to create an AI agent that can perform the kinds of roles that you would like performed, you know, alongside human participants in this network.
What happens that I'm describing my vision and my understanding, but I cannot expect that the team that will emerge will follow my understanding. So I'm trying to be as grounded as possible and accept any possibility. Yeah, just we are not able to predict with high accuracy what will really happen and how this kind of project will be realized. Especially within this year, where they expect this distributed AIs started developing.
Right.
And again, this distributed AI is only a kind of intelligence and decision-making tool, while it will not build the holistic ontology itself.
So, for example, here you are in my brain. You've probably seen this. And I connected LikeInMind to the thought collaborative sense making, which has a bunch of projects I've met over time, some of which I'm a part of. So have you ever heard of topic quests?
Yes, I think so. It is related to Jack Park.
Yes, exactly. So you know Jack?
I know Jack, yes. I spoke with him. He has brilliant ideas, but he stopped at certain point with his topics mapping.
So I'm you know, I have a small side role in topic quests. I'm mostly an observer, but I know Jack quite well. He's come to many of my events. He's brought some of his other collaborators to some of my events, which was actually very nice because they're really interesting as well. And you know, Topic Quest is extremely ambitious, and I will confess that I barely understand it. That they're operating at a level that is not my level, and so I listen so that I can learn, but I'm not connecting into what, you know, where they're understanding how this works. But there's kind of a bunch of different groups that have tried to do these kinds of things. You know, Common Knowledge Group, collaborology is a term somebody coined. Oh, actually, Sam Hun coined collaborology, and he's part of the group that's doing topic quests. So anyway, what's interesting, I think, and probably not a surprise to you, is that there are many people trying to conquer the same problem, right? Do you know about WorldBrain?
Yes.
WorldBrain.io?
Not sure whether it's the same one, but...
It could be. If you go to worldbrain.io, you will see whether it's the same one or not, because it'll look familiar to you right away. And I had not paid much attention to WorldBrain before, but yesterday on Facebook, a friend of mine said, "Hey, I'm advising called WorldBrain." So I went and took a look. It's quite interesting. And one of my questions is there a way that all of our different sense-making groups could collaborate somehow? Is there some kind of common ground? Because really each of these projects is taking a quite different perspective into the whole problem, even though I think that there would be general alignment on the goals. At the end of the day, what we would like to see happen would probably be pretty similar, but each of these is going about it in a quite different way.
Well, I had a conversation with Sam Han.
Mm-hmm.
How to call it? Just I stick now to this model of a subject, of a global subject as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so the subject, what's good about this model, that it extrapolates of the features of individual into a bigger scale, into organizations. And we can tell what level of different aspects that this organization has, what kind of consciousness they have. It may be heard weird, mm-hmm. but actually people are working on research of collective consciousness. And so they show the different levels of collective consciousness, which is nearly impossible to believe and imagine.
Which you would like to be able to derive from participation in
yes.
LikeInMind? Is that what you're saying?
No. Well, it's a characteristic of every collective subject. For example, mm-hmm. Sam Han, he is administrator of GCC, which is, I forgot the name. I can't find it. But anyway, it's a global challenge. I can't remember.
Yeah. Global Challenges Collaboration.
Global Challenges Collaboration.
Yep.
And as many others, including people on ecology of system thinking, mm-hmm. I administer on. They believe that these things will be evolved naturally without any additional collaboration. So what they are effectively talking about, that without developing our collective consciousness, in some magic way, we will reach this level of organization. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we can talk about this later. Just they believe that without developing their collective consciousness, they are not talking this way.
Right.
But effectively, they're saying that if we have lots of groups locally with the same idea in mind, then the transformation will take its place automatically. Which means that collectively they are not connected. They're connected by the same idea, but their actions are not coordinated.
Or they're coordinated only in a haphazard way, meaning some people are connected, other people are not. They don't care. I mean, the model doesn't necessarily presuppose heavy connectivity, I think is what you're describing.
Yes, and this all is falling pretty well into our current practices. And if we are talking about intelligence processes, they say that our thinking has 3 modes. It's a quick thinking, slower thinking, and slow thinking. You familiar with that?
I'm familiar with Thinking Fast and Slow, Danny Kahneman's book.
Oh, right. It's actually, that was, yeah. And also Jack Park was talking about the same issues.
Uh-huh.
And for too many people, they are not realizing that they are not working in a slow mode, mm-hmm. where everything is basically mapped and connections are built. Yeah, so we are talking not about something fixed and rigid, but mm-hmm. Dynamical structures. But it's something that we are also forming in our brains. It can be called a long-term memory. So for too many people, for too many organizations, mm-hmm. the highest level they can reach is working memory, where ideas are brought into the context They are useful. They are not. Many of them are forgotten. Just it's all random process. There is no order. There is no higher order in their activities. And with this kind of chaos, they think that the overall goal of global sustainability will be achieved.
Right. So my problem, I think, is that I don't know of many or any communities that have been able to map themselves to ontologies reasonably well and make that productive. Like they get stuck there and then they break apart. There was a tool a very long time ago called Grapevine. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It was a tool long ago, and what it helped companies do was create sort of a common ontology so that they agreed on, when we say customer, what does the word customer actually mean? Because there's actually very little agreement on even things like that, right? And so Grapevine was an attempt to do that, the little company that went under a long time ago. So what inspires you to think that getting people to use that kind of ontologies will actually work? Because I have trouble obeying anybody else's ontology. What I like about the brain, and the reason that I have 380,000 things in my brain, is that nobody told me where to put anything, and I didn't have to debate anything with anyone as I put it in. I could just populate this tool the way my brain worked and come up with my own cliches for how I do things. You know, I put actors under their movies, I put authors above their books, I put directors to the left of the movies. And you might do it entirely differently, and that's okay, because the brain doesn't really care. Now, if there was an ontology I had to obey, the brain would care a lot. One of the companies I was an advisor to long ago was run by a guy named Nova Spivak, who is brilliant. Nova is really smart. And the company was called, oh God, I have to look him up in my brain. And he had, as part of this project, developed a huge ontology. Bottlenose, Radar Networks is the name of the company. And
Yes,
he had built kind of a semantic web ontology of some sort. He went way deep on this, and they ended up having to sell the company because they couldn't really make anything happen.
Yeah, it's a classic trees problem where you have to create a system which is rigid enough to withstand the changes and soft enough to have these changes accepted and working with.
And the closest thing we have to it that I know of is tagging, where you get a community that starts to converge tags. Instead of letting misspellings and different versions of a word, you find a way to converge on terms in a tag cloud, and then somebody else can be behind the scenes maybe connecting the tag cloud. But the closest I've seen to the process we're describing being fruitful in a broad community is tagging, like on Delicious long ago.
Yes, what seems happening is our transfer from keywords where tagging belongs to working with a sense, with the meanings. So that's where the role of this cognitive assistant will be invaluable.
Mm-hmm.
that is a huge barrier that now we need to be past. To allow people to start talking not words but meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's where the problem is. When you describe a problem with the ontology for a business or organization, they made it rigid.
Right.
And whatever is rigid is broken.
Right, won't work. So to go deeper toward what you're saying, I actually think the very interesting things that might solve some of our social problems lie in the discussion between what we mean by the same word.
Yes.
Right? So migrant or immigrant, and what are the effects of immigration? That's interesting, and that's clearly a world problem right now. And what we mean and how we interpret that word, and whether we see it as a plus or a minus to society, et cetera, is driving world politics today. So if the process of agreeing on the word is difficult and loaded and important, how do we skip past that to have a finished definition for the ontology?
It can be overcome if we start looking again not on the world, not on the words, but on the overall picture.
So
yeah,
you need a holistic perspective then. But part of our problem is that some people are seeing. So I did a video a couple of years ago where I said, look, the word economics and the word ecology both come from the Greek word oikos, which means the household. And ecology and economics both think that they're managing the household. But my belief is they're managing a different sized household. In economics, it's me and my immediate nuclear family, and we're fighting everybody else for resources, and we're trying to be selfish, greedy, self-interested people because the invisible hand will make it all work. And in ecology, the house is the planet, and we realize that if we act poorly, other people suffer, and we behave according to that house model. But if we both have completely different scaled notions of what the house is, and one group of people is not thinking holistically and in the large, the whole thing breaks. No?
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, it's also a need in this holistic thinking, education. Yeah, and my model I'm trying to talk about is that each of us is looking on his favorite side of a model,
right,
without even realizing that this model should have a backside. And each of us is looking on his favorites side. Yeah. So what we need to do is to learn to flip this coin and see what's actually our kind of opponents are thinking about the same thing.
Right. And I'm extremely interested in that conversation. Right. Because if we can have a reasonable conversation on how we disagree about words and meanings and context, we're getting somewhere toward a solution. We may be stuck for a decade, because I'm realistic about how hard this can be. Because in order to agree on a term, it could be that some participants have to give up a lot.
My understanding is that we are not agreeing on terms. We keep doing things. I was a student of a school in Russia, which they call themselves methodologists. And for me, it's again, it's okay. I'll try to find the English word. Just basically, what they do, they say that thinking and acting is, in principle, is the same process. I just don't want to interrupt on typing. Yeah, so it's basically the same process. If we start breaking it, oops, excuse me. Oh, excuse me for a minute.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. The point is looking not into the words, but into the meaning. And the meaning for us is the process we are involved in, we are being a part of. And actually being a part of is becoming more, it's just critically important. Only being a part of something, full associations with that, makes your intents serious. For many people, I see that they are talking about economical, ecological, and social problems from very scientific, very abstract way. They do not see themselves a part of those processes.
So in the last day, I got sucked into a little debate on a Facebook thread that nature is or is not a mechanism. right? That is mechanical or not. And there's one guy who says, of course, nature's a mechanism. And there's like 8 of us trying to convince him that that's a stupid way of looking at the world. And we are getting nowhere. We are actually getting nowhere. And that's just a teeny little example, right? Of how people are perfectly happy to disagree hard for a long time about terms, even just about meanings.
Yes, and I believe that when they start working as a whole, as a team, only then they will see what actually works. They will see also the points of view of the participants of the same team.
Mm-hmm.
And so they will see how their point of view is fitting the overall picture. And before that, we have very little chances of understanding each other.
So if I follow your argument, we need 1 billion people to work on the same project.
Yeah, so I thought of giving you this picture just of a coin, first of all, or a medal. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just we see each of us, the same problem is seen from different sides. So the idea, but the world is in between of those sides. Yeah, because what we're actually doing, we section our world by our vision, pretending that our vision is true. Mm-hmm. But the cake can be cut in a million ways. We can expose a berry or a slice or whatever we like. We personally like it and so find it suitable to our situation, to our context, but in a million ways. So maybe the best metaphor that we can think of is dice, where each of the sides of the dice is reflecting this situation. The dice is rolling on the surface of our life, and every facet reflecting understanding, someone's understanding, maybe my understanding or others. Yeah, but from a different time, differently. So that should be the vision that we eventually probably will come to, talking to many people, because what we actually see is not the world as it is. It's a world which is reflected in our mind, in our consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, so we cannot really say how this world actually is. What is the objective situation with this world? We are not able to achieve it. Only humanity, from this billion points of view, may approach this holistic vision. Only approach. As many people, just on the number of people, will add to accuracy of description of this world. So saying about holistic ontology, it's not the ontology that will give you the 100% accurate picture of the world. It will be still as accurate as we can make it altogether.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So given that I'm pouring information into a tool that is proprietary and has no API, which is unfortunate, and you're working on a project where you're trying to find collaborators who can create an artificial intelligence that will become a virtual assistant, et cetera, which are not my skills, but that we're both aiming roughly in a similar sort of direction, how might we collaborate on something beyond having conversations like this?
Well, just before collaboration, they say, well, it's again a long topic. Mm-hmm. Our activities, especially if they are touching something new, some new facets of our lives, may require a language developed to describe these facets, to describe something new we are developing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so everything is emerging together, not simultaneously, but step by step, enhancing each other. Yeah, so our understanding may creates a need for developing a new language. A new understanding based on this language is formed. Yeah, interesting. So I'm trying to introduce this understanding of myself, that each of us has their own associative networks in their brains.
Yes.
And they are suiting each of us as much as we like.
Yes.
But then to get to understanding of other people, we already start seeing on their associative networks, on similarities and differences between them.
Right.
And what is important from holistic point of view is seeing differences between people, not as differences of opponents, but those things which are complementing our models, which are making this whole vision complete.
Right.
This is a critical understanding, yeah? And so what we are trying to do right now, for example, talking, we are trying to synchronize our associative networks, seeing what is resonating with us and making us unite and coming closer together, and what differences we have to make our common projects successful.
And so the reason I just screen shared and showed you my beliefs is that in my dreams, I wish the brain were open, I wish it were more collaborative, and I wish then that you and I could compare our belief snapshots. That's what I call this, a belief snapshot, which is, hey, I've said, look, I believe that actually God is in everybody. I don't think that there's a separate God above us. I don't think that God is judging us. I think that God is actually in everybody, which is something I've borrowed from the Quakers, right? So it's under Quaker thinking, but it's one of my fundamental truths, and I don't have a lot of fundamental truths. But out of this come ideas like each of us is therefore responsible. Everybody is equal. If you hurt somebody, you hurt yourself, which is of course a common thought to a lot of religions. So I have a lot of things here under my beliefs. It's a little bit messy, right? I believe that it's really sad that we have to teach people empathy. Children are born full of empathy. We socialize it out of them. So it would be really nice to have an automated intelligent assistant that could look at your belief snapshot and my belief snapshot and say, hey guys, here's a bunch of stuff you seem to really agree on. And it would cluster them together side by side or something like that, and it would all be green and happy, and there'd be happy faces and puppies next to it. And then here's a couple topics where you seem to think very differently. And it would then order a good bottle of wine for both of us, or a beer, and we could sit down and virtually or face-to-face, sit down and examine those things, ask each other questions we could pick a deliberation methodology, ask each other questions. We could have that conversation in public, which is what I'm trying to do with Inside Jerry's Brain. I'm trying to have a show where I invite people in and we can talk about where we differ on things. And I haven't found that many people where we actually differ to really push the edge of how this might work. But then we could set up experiments, we could monitor the experiments, we could crowdsource results, we could recruit other people, we could ask for refinement from other people, all of which is community forming activity, right? And then we could, maybe over time, we could start to diminish those areas where we disagree a lot, or agree to disagree, and that means that you're going to pursue these kinds of experiments and I'll pursue these others. And this gets very complicated as soon as you add individual 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Because suddenly the combinatorial thing just goes wacky. Never mind a billion people doing this, but it gets wacky with 3. So that's my dream, is that we can actually begin to look, that more people are motivated to express their beliefs in some explicit fashion, even if they're half-fledged, right? Some of these beliefs on this list, I don't feel really strongly about them, but I want to put them out there so that somebody else can write me back and say, yeah, you're wrong over here. And that to me is a very interesting conversation. And I'm hoping that this brain thing becomes a platform for those sorts of conversations and that kind of process. I would love that. So that to me is a really important thing to do, to try to be part of, to head toward. It's part of the reason why I'm doing the Inside Jerry's Brain series.
Yes, yeah, and I understand you completely. And I would probably mention here the triangle of frustration again. So my understanding that you are sitting closer to this social problematics, where I'm focused more on problem solving, which is somewhere between economy and ecology. Yes, and just my understanding that in our fluid world, we can collect people to solve problems using their similarities and differences, because similarities is what unites them, but differences is what makes the project viable. So they complement each other, and artificial intelligence will be able to help us with forming these teams. So it will look, okay, so these people will work together. And so they have all the required roles to fill to have this project complete. So the invitations is sent to this, say, 20, 30 people. They get together the way they like, in person or in online, and to make the things done. So this is my focus. I believe your focus is providing the environment for more research, building ontologies, and building understanding of people, which still one of the important aspects for my purposes as well, for making difference in the world.
And I'm not a tool builder. I don't know how to code. I know good code, or good things when I see them, because I've seen a lot of software. I'm desperately hoping that somebody invents something better than the brain, right? Part of the reason for having the Inside Jerry's Brain calls is to show people what's possible beyond my use of the brain. I don't mean for these calls to be promotional about the brain. I mean for them in part to be a critique of the brain, because I'm not happy with where I have to stop because of the brain's limitations. And then I'm not a coder, I'm not a developer, but the part of it that I love is both the curation of the expression of beliefs, which I love, and the facilitation or the hosting of difficult conversations around those beliefs with other people, as long as they don't lose their cool and decide they need to get angry or whatever. But if and I've had several super interesting conversations where clearly the other person and I are on very different wavelengths about a topic, and yet we can respectfully work our way around the topic and ask questions and walk away with new thoughts. So I think that that's a very fruitful thing for society, and it would be lovely if there existed an AI that could listen to that conversation, provoke each of us to consider things we hadn't thought about before that help bring us more toward the center, curate and sort of select from what we said and did interesting things that populate the space better, maybe, I don't know. Invite other people into the conversation who would help the conversation, maybe, I don't know. But I'm describing an AI that's much smarter than any AI I've ever seen. And my background in technology started in 1987-8 when I was a neural networks analyst for a little market trends research firm in Connecticut. So I was an analyst during the second lifetime of neural nets. And it amuses me no end that deep learning is now like the fourth incarnation of neural nets, and it's booming. Like it's gigantic, right? But I feel like I have some understanding of both the possibility and the limitations of all these different kinds of technologies for sense making, for automated sense making.
Yes, and for me, it's still the sense should be made by people, for people, and in general, yeah. I'm thinking about also, it's a part of ecology of human. So we need to provide the possibility for each of us to be active in this world and not rely on others' opinions and whatever is worked out by artificial intelligence.
So I agree with what you just said, and then I'll add something that you probably are thinking as well, which is, are you familiar with AlphaZero?
No.
So are you familiar with AlphaGo?
No.
So AlphaGo is the Go playing the deep learning network that Google created to play Go. And a year and a half, 2 years ago, it beat Lee Sedol, who was the top ranking Go player in the world. That made the news, right? In order to train AlphaGo, they fed it hundreds of thousands of Go games played by experts. Then they were like, the training is burdensome. Why don't we just have it play itself? So they created a version of AlphaGo called AlphaGo Zero that had no knowledge of any Go games. All it knew was the rules of Go, which, unlike the real world, are very crisp and very clear. You can only put a stone at an intersection of the lines. Here's how many lines there are. Here's how you take territory. So luckily, Go, like chess, has very clear rules. So this version of Go software with no experience of expert games learned within 2 days, it beat the version of AlphaGo that had beat Lee Sedol. Within 4 days, it was inventing new moves that Go experts were stunned by. So, and then Google went and created a version called AlphaZero, not AlphaGo Zero, but AlphaZero, which is a more generalized platform that can play chess, Go, and shogi, I think it is, which is a Chinese version of chess, kind of. And it kicks ass on all these games by teaching itself the rules of the games, and it can teach itself the rules of the games now in a day at most, because it's using these TensorFlow processors that are insanely quick, and it can just iterate. So there's a piece of all this conversation where I'm thinking, what might a super intelligent machine learning be able to tell us that we're not thinking about, that we're not seeing? What is the space that we're not considering because of our assumptions, our presuppositions? And what would loosen our brains enough to be able to consider some of the possibilities in that new space? And I think that's super, super exciting. I mean, I think that space is abstract enough that it doesn't have simple rules like you can only put a stone on the crosses, so who knows if we'll ever get there. But the idea that machine learning, because it's unencumbered by how we see the world and our frameworks and our expectations and our biases, because it's unencumbered by those things, it might actually find its way to new and interesting solutions. I love that.
I'm not sure. Just what I know that it should be kind of extended or augmented artificial intelligence. And I think that the AI itself will not help with developing our consciousness on a higher level. Yeah, it's still, it may facilitate it. It may open the world from different points of view, but it will still be the effort of each of us to come to understanding that it will be only us who will define our life in this world, on this planet and beyond. So
well, I'm hoping humans still get to make the decisions, but I'm sort of saying that machine learning might invent decision scenarios that we can't imagine.
Yes, they can, but again, without context, it will have no meaning.
Yeah.
The meaning, who is making this meaning? Who is making the demands?
Right.
It still will be us who will decide whether this whole activity, even whether it has a sense or not.
Right.
And so what doesn't have sense now, it may have sense in future, but again, we cannot disrupt the evolutionary process for the humans as a whole as well. So we are talking about evolution, conscious evolution of humanity. And so we need to find a way of facilitating that rather than just developing the tools. AR is a tool in any way.
Yes, and just to throw a wrench in the works, there's a body of humans on Earth who have discovered that if you undermine rational discourse and you undercut facts and knowledge and science, you can actually win elections and run the table. And these people are winning more and more elections in country after country after country. And they're not only uninterested in reasonable dialogue, they realize that reasonable dialogue and rational discussion is the enemy, and they should get rid of it as much as possible. So what you and I are describing in wishful terms is actually completely against their strategy.
What's happening is that they are arguing to their subconsciousness or maybe even unconscious processes. So they are referring to their kind of animal part.
I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think this is a very considered strategy, and these people are as smart as you and I. I think they have made a strategic decision, and they understand dynamics in the media sphere and the human sphere that we're ignoring. I don't think that they're somehow tapping into, animal instincts that are less smart than you and I.
What's happening? That if we consider a society as a collective subject, and so if this society is not capable of self-reflecting on it, and when we see that for each of the participants of whatever organization, those processes are not visible, it means that they are working on a lower level of consciousness. It can be subconsciousness or unconscious processes. That's far deeper in our brains. So we, it's closer to our animal, to our automatic processes in our brains. The upper level, the consciousness. No, I'm sure about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Just the upper level. Just when you start bringing this to reasoning, to understanding, what's actually happening is going beyond understanding. It's all based on reflexes. Yeah. So
what when you say what's happening, which part of what's happening do you mean falls into your description?
No, I'm just talking about what you just said. That if politicians are not bringing discussions on the surface, when they make people not talking about these issues, they win elections.
Yes.
It means that when they address emotions.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you pat a person on the head, you win.
So we're not. I'm not communicating right. I don't mean that the mass of people out there being driven by emotions and fear is somehow smarter than us. What I mean is the strategists who have figured out how to do that, how to appeal to people's emotions and how to use new media and old media to make that work, they're operating at the same level of intelligence as you and I. Absolutely. They get it. They're not operating at some animal level of intelligence. They're realizing, pardon?
Yes, but they are utilizing the lower level of consciousness of those people. So it can be called manipulation of masses.
Yes, but I think that the number, so let's pretend that 30% of US voters voted for Trump. And I think most liberals believe that 29% of those people are racist, homophobic, misogynist, sexist pigs and idiots and are working from some animal instinct of fear and deprivation. I happen to believe that 10% of those people are misogynist, racist, homophobic pigs. I happen to believe that a large number of Trump's backers are pretty damn smart, kind of shrewd, and they hate the current system, and they elected Trump. They voted for Trump to break the current system. And because they see how dysfunctional the current system actually is, and they know that a good-intentioned guy like Obama got nowhere. He got nowhere. He was unable to cause any change because he was basically in a straitjacket his whole administration, right? And so they're like, we're going to put a crazy guy at the tiller because he might break enough things that we get a different system out the other end. And if that different system is some kind of autarky or dictatorship, too bad. But could it be worse than our current prospects? Don't know. But I think that's a line of reasoning I respect. I don't agree with it remotely. But I think that's reasoning. That's not, those people are not down in some animal fear instinct. They get that the animal fear is being triggered by the rhetoric. They totally see that, but they're seeing it as observers of a show, like a reality TV show that they happen to be in. Does that make sense?
Well, what you're talking about to me is just a ripple on the surface of the ocean. We have to go deeper. We have to see the overall picture. We need to see who are all those major players in the politics of United States and globally, and see their interests, their flows of resources, and many other stuff. And until we start seeing it, we're just underdeveloped as collectives.
Yeah.
And so first of all, just to get awareness about the processes, these processes should be visualized, brought to the surface. For each of the participants who has a need of knowing this and understanding, so we connect individual subjects, potentially up to the global subject, seeing his own place in all those processes. Knowing that if he did not throw his rubbish properly, he increased the temperature on the Earth on some point something. When he starts seeing it, when he starts seeing his own place in just everything, it will give him a feedback on his behavior. it will make him think, what is he? Part of what processes he is. Yeah, so, and so then it will be a step towards the collective consciousness, and also to the conscious evolution. So he will know that he is in the processes of evolving his consciousness, and he's that with full awareness and understanding what he actually is doing to himself, to his nearest collective, like his family, his organization, his city, and his planet. His planet. That's him who is living on this planet. Not, it's crazy, but we have to talk with people like that.
For sure. Well, maybe that's a good place for us to leave the conversation. We can have Trey listen to what we talked about.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed hearing what, how you see what you're doing, and I'm interested. I'm just trying to figure out like what how do we play on something together? So.
Yeah, it would be nice to find a way and start developing something together. And yeah, thank you very much. Thanks a lot for what you're doing. It's TheBrain is just amazing.
Thank you. Well, I did not create TheBrain. I just like it a lot. So, and thank you for what you're doing too. Yeah, I did not write the software. So.
No, I'm talking not about the software, which is good on its own, but your contribution, your connections, your mind maps that you built with this time.
Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. It's been very, very fun and very easy from my perspective. So.
Yeah, I know. But for many, it's for too many, it's too difficult.
Exactly, and that's a big problem. That's a big problem. Well,
thank
Dmitry,
you very much.
Thank you. Спасибо, хорошо.
Oh, good. Thanks. Спасибо. Bye for now. See you later.
Bye-bye. Okay. Bye.